So you have the copy of this one and two other songs. You got
You offer hope when our hearts hopelessly lost our way. Oh, we hopelessly lost our way. You are the one that we praise. You are the one we adore. You get the healing and grace. Our hearts always hunger for. Oh, our hearts always hunger for. All I need is the night. Faithfully love you more. Here our weakness to find us. Now you forward from. Oh, we probably forward from. You are the one that we praise. You are the one we adore. You give the healing and praise. Our hearts always hunger for. Oh, our hearts always hunger for.
I am not the most organized person in the world, and I think I have it all together, and then all of a sudden I find out I don't. But I've been working on this, 'cause it's interesting to me, because I'm one of those people who always thought it didn't pertain to me. It was history, and it was futuristic, and nobody really seemed to know what it was all about. And I'm sure even after our study, there's going to be some things that we still don't know. It's just the way it is. So anyway, whenever, the only time I studied it, that I remember two different classes. And one was years ago, and I don't remember whether it was Idaho or here. And they said, all that came out of it was that this pertained to the Catholic Church. So as we'll find out later, that the Catholic Church had something to do with it, but not the way I thought it did. I was taught, or whatever. And then the second time was about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was out in Idaho, and my nephew, who used to be a little boy and is now almost 60, I couldn't believe it, until I got to figuring it out, that he taught the class on the 7 churches. And I happened to be there for a couple of nights, on like a Wednesday night, I think. And he did an excellent job, and so I knew about the 7 churches, but there's a lot more to it than the 7 churches, because he's actually preaching all this, or telling all this to the 7 churches. So anyway, John, of course, wrote the book, and I'm gonna be reviewing a lot of stuff that you've already heard, and I hope I don't get into some of your lessons on down the road, because I got curious and looked up some things. And for instance, one of them was about Patmos, where John was when he wrote this, and I thought you might be interested in it. It was a small rocky island that was used as a place of exile for criminals and political prisoners. Of course, John didn't think in one of those really, but they thought he did. And it was characterized by harsh living conditions, limited resources, and the threat of exposure, violence, and starvation. Patmos was a remote island, making it ideal for isolating unwanted individuals. The island's landscape featured rugged terrain with sparse vegetation, leading to harsh living conditions and limited resources. Excuse me, my nose starts running as soon as I come in from the cold. It doesn't quit. Okay, food and shelter were scarce, and prisoners likely had to fend for themselves, increasing the risk of starvation exposure. With a mix of criminals and political prisoners, the island could have been a dangerous place, with the risk of violence and attacks from the other convicts. And while prisoners were allowed some freedom to roam the island, they were guarded by Roman soldiers, and so they weren't really that free. And John was on Patmos because he upheld the word of God and the testimony of Christ. That was his only crime that put him in prison. That was interesting to me, and I probably y'all like to hear it. Okay? We're gonna start with class section 2, the 7 keys that unlock the book of Revelation. Okay, we have 5 approaches. You've all heard this if you've been here. If you haven't, well, there's 5 approaches, which is kind of, what do I call it? Impressions of people's ideas on Revelation and books that's been written about it and taught. Like I was taught about it, mostly about the Catholic Church, and it definitely isn't. Okay, and we're going to look at the fall of Rome, the destruction of Jerusalem, and it foretells the world history and the principles of this philosophies. I've been working on that word, future time. So we'll start with the fall of Rome, I think. Oh, okay, we're going to read now the 7 keys, sorry. Short night. Revelation is written in symbols. Revelation, where I can't see. Revelation will shortly come to pass. Revelation was given to comfort persecuted Christians, and Revelation identifies the dragon and the 2 beasts. Sorry. Revelation identifies the harlot, and we're going to learn more about her. Revelation identifies the 1260 days, and as Linda pointed out, actually it was written 3 or 4 different ways by months and years, and it's about 3.5 years, I think. Yes. And this is literal too. I mean, we don't know for sure, of course. Revelation identifies the kingdom. So we're going to look at all these and see just which it is. And the 7 keys is written in symbols. They'll shortly come to pass, given to comfort them. Dragon is Satan. The first beast is Roman Empire. Second beast is emperor worship, and harlot's the city of Rome. And 1260 days is when Rome persecuted the Christians. They were under persecution, and really they said it was one of the harshest persecutions in history. And so we'll hear why. Kingdom is the church. I'm not used to PowerPoint, so Linda graciously said she would do it. We haven't really worked together, so I'm just kind of going along with it here. Okay, we're going to talk about the future time view, and they don't really talk in symbols so much in the future time. I mean, of course, they all do the dragon and the beast. So it's literal, with modifications, focus, like they say, they're in the future, remember, writing this back in Revelations, but these future people say that, that means the locusts mean helicopters, the sea of blood means pollution, and the horses with fire has to be tanks. Not, okay. And it'll shortly come to pass, but it won't, because most of these people viewed it as still in the future after 2,000 years. So we know that doesn't work very well. Linda's listed the pages here if anybody wants to follow along. And comfort persecuted Christians. Nope. Warnings about 2,000 years after Revelation was written isn't going to be comforting those prisoners or those Christians. They don't even know how long the future is. So am I out of everybody's way? Do I need to get back? Okay. I'm probably sit down, but it's there. Okay, it really doesn't identify the dragon in this for the future time. And the first beast is a revived Roman Empire arising out of today's European common market. Okay, I didn't know what, I mean, I've heard of it, European market, but I didn't know what it was or what it has to do with their thoughts on Revelation. And here is what I looked it up, and it said it's the 27 member states in the European Union and guarantees free movement of people, goods, services, and capital, money, euros, within these states. And I still don't really know what it has to do up here. Anybody got an idea on it? I mean, you know, okay,
So I think that, I mean, I never studied this and somebody saying this is this is this, but one world, money, you know, like everybody is gonna have this common, currency exchange
Yeah.
in the world, and so it's one world order, one world government. And so that hasn't happened yet, and so I think that that's kind of where that
Oh,
leads to.
could be.
On this.
cause they
future
do
group
have
of-
27, but the last I heard, and I didn't change it, there was, only about 20 now, cause some of them's dropped out of it.
Well, I don't know if the current European Union is what it's talking about.
Yeah.
Their view of this in Revelation is that this one world
Okay.
order and one world money.
Global.
You know, global,
What-
yeah, what global order.
Yeah, we have a group of, people, I don't know how, I can't put a label on it. They
Yeah.
believe in one world order,
Yeah.
one global
Currency.
leader.
Yeah.
And they go, some, depending on what group of Christians you're talking about and their particular view, there's several views on Revelation. And, they believe that there, at that time, there will be one world leader, and that will probably be the beast.
Okay, it still doesn't make sense to me, but I do understand why they got this better. Okay, and it also the Roman then the first beast is also saying that the Roman Antichrist is coming at the end of the world. Okay, I didn't really know what Antichrist was. I mean, I knew it's Antichrist, but I hadn't thought about just exactly what it was, so I looked that up. And I found out that, John is the only writer in the New Testament to mention the word Antichrist. And then only 5 times. And, anyway, he defines Antichrist as he who denies the Father and the Son, 1 John 2:22, does not confess Jesus, 1 John 4:3, does not confess Jesus as coming in the flesh, 2 John 1:7, and then 1 John 2:18 and 27 warns against those who oppose Christ in their teaching, and I think I gave that verse to somebody.
I thought this was the future that somebody thinks.
It is.
Okay.
It is. I'm just telling you what
You don't know.
Antichrist is, because I didn't know for
Well,
sure, I
don't.
never really just thought about it. And this is his description of the
I think when we
Antichrist.
get to, the end of the book, we're gonna see some things more clearly.
Yeah, I know that,
I hope.
myself, I just thought that might, if they knew all this, that might help as we go through the book, because it did me. Okay,
The scripture you mentioned, what's that, Revelations 20:12?
2:18 through
Oh.
22. I mean, not through 22 and 22,
And I have that if you want me to.
Yeah.
Okay,
please.
so this is 1 John 2, verse 18. Little children, it is the last hour, and as you have heard, that the Antichrist is coming. Even now, many Antichrists have come, by which we know that it is the last hour. And then 22 says, who is a liar, that he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist, who denies the Father and the Son.
Okay, and, so, are there still antichrists in the world today?
Yes.
The one I comes first to mind is the Satanist church. You've read about it, that, just worships Satan and believes in, I don't know how they believe in it, but I've heard of it. And it's, I don't figure out how they did it. Okay, and the second beast is the Jewish Antichrist. The first one, was Roman Antichrist. The second beast is the Jewish Antichrist, and they came at the same time, which they did, but not as the Antichrist. Well, I guess maybe they were, but, anyway. Okay, now, the future time. One way it fits, doesn't fit, is again, they didn't describe the dragon, who we know as Satan. And the first beast is a revived Roman Empire. Oh, we already done that, I didn't go down, but identifies the harlot. Okay, she is called the harlot, of course, it's the city of Rome, but, talking about her, she is, get my paper here, called the Babylon the Great, describes her. And Babylon is another thing that I had wondered about. Maybe because it's got baby, I don't know, I always thought that's a neat name. But I had never read about what Babylon really was. So anyway, in the Bible, Babylon, it was a city in Mesopotamia that was a center of trade and religion. It was also a symbol of sin and rebellion. Babylon symbolizes evil. God destroyed this wicked city in the ancient world, Isaiah 13:19 through 22. I thought I gave that to somebody.
Got it. Sorry.
Isaiah,
Yeah, I got it.
okay.
We gotta change glasses, so. Okay, Babylon, the jewel of kingdoms, the glory of the Babylonians' pride, will be overthrown by God like Sodom and Gomorrah. She will never be inhabited or lived in through all generations. No Arab will pitch his tent there, no shepherd will rest his flocks there, but desert creatures will lie there, jackals will fill her houses. There the owls will dwell, and there the wild goats will leap about. Hyenas will howl in her strongholds, jackals in her luxurious palaces. Her time is at hand, and her days will not leave her alone.
Sounds pretty bad. I don't think anybody'd wanna live there, especially after God comes.
And it's still desolate to this day.
Yeah,
And, wasn't it Cyrus that came in and destroyed, the Persian king came in and destroyed Babylon? And that was when the Jews were able to go back, to their homeland.
Yes. Yes, and one thing we get mixed up here when we say the approaches. What are the approaches? Well, these are 5 views that people have about Revelation.
right.
And I think if we just get that in our minds, it makes it so much clearer. This is just somebody's opinion.
Yeah.
And so these are 5 views we're looking at of somebody's opinion. I call them opinions instead of approaches.
Yeah. I had a hard time keeping them straight too, because you go down through this and then you get kind of caught up in it, but I know that these are views that the world has and other people have. I guess maybe a whole bunch of people had the same view, I don't know. But anyway, Babylon has become the symbol of wickedness and evils of the world. And that's what the harlot was. Okay, and somebody will go into that more as we go through. Identifies the 1260 days mentioned as a time of war in Israel before Christ's second coming. But we know that that is not true, because the 1260 days are the days of the persecution of these Christians and how long it's gonna last.
That's 200 years probably.
Well, I guess I thought it was probably 350,
Question,
95.
95 to 4, oh, I thought it was to 425 or something like that.
Yeah, it's the
So-
time we're in Israel.
so Stafford North thinks the 1260 is just figurative though, it's not 1260 days, it's not
Right.
2.5 years, or 3.5 years.
The
And
time
so
of the
it's so literal to me when they say that over and over, exactly how long it is. I have a hard time with it being figurative, whenever like Satan is the dragon. You
Yeah.
know, it's 1260 days, it's 3.5 years, it's 42 months, and yet it's figurative. So that's where I get
Yeah,
stuck
it is
in all of these
confusing, and the
symbols.
persecution, like, it doesn't end till
I know,
313 AD.
3 or 4.
With the edit of at Milan, which was put together by the Emperor Constantine. So the persecution lasts till Constantine in 313 AD
Yeah.
stopped it with an edit. And he had Eusebius print Bibles. That history is really interesting when you look at all those emperors down the line to 313 when Constantine came in and stopped it. So it's really interesting.
It
Well,
would be, but
I
I
think-
decided not to get into it.
No,
yeah.
But like she says, for your own
That's
thing,
where it
I,
falls apart for me on that symbolism, that right there, I don't, it's like, it's just so,
but like she said, you'd almost have to read all the history, and it's history, not necessarily biblical.
but why are
It
they
is
using
interesting.
that number, those months, those many?
because it's written in
Times.
symbols.
It's written in symbols, and that's something else we need to remember. These are all symbolic, and even when we go to the Old Testament, and they spoke specifically about, in Isaiah and in Daniel, they used specific numbers, but they were all symbolic. And they were able to relate to them at that time when it was written. And it's very difficult for us to interpret that because we are living in a different time.
True. So anyway, going back to 1260 days, and thanks for your info, because like I said, I didn't really just study that. I mean, I knew it was symbolic and wasn't exact, but it gives you something to think about, that how long they were persecuted, even 2 years, if that's what it ended up, it's a long time. Okay, and they identified the kingdom as a future physical earthly power. And of course, we know it's not. It is actually, Revelation speaks of the kingdom as a spiritual reign going on, of which John and the early Christians were already a part. So the kingdom is, the early Christians and us today, okay? Okay, now we're going to the principles of philosophy. And the symbols, there aren't any new ones in there. Shortly come to pass, no. I always kind of thought philosophy was all over my head too, and they're usually PhDs and all that. But anyway, so they, but equally applicable, never mind. Anyway, they say it's in all kinds of places, not just in the days of, the persecuted Christians. And to comfort the persecution Christians, again, it's applicable to all kinds of places, not just to these early Christians. It identifies the dragon and two beasts, and of course, well, it didn't, I guess the dragon, again, it is, of course, Satan. The first beast is any persecuting political power, which we know is not true. This was all, talking about Rome and Roman Empire. The second beast is any false religion or philosophy opposed to Christianity. And
I just wanted to make a comment. I thought it was interesting, Dr. North, and I agree that even though it wasn't any political power or any false religion, that application for them, but for us, we can see that that's still part of what's going on. And he, like he said, there are a lot of principles that you can take from the book of Revelation that really do apply, but that's not what he's talking about, what those people he wrote to would have understood it to be, and so that's why it wasn't taken this way.
Wait a minute, I'm not quite understanding what you're saying.
I'm saying that, Revelations, like any of the books in the Bible, have principles that apply to us, that may apply a little bit different to the people who actually heard it, more specifically to them, but there are principles that still apply to us. I mean, so there are political powers now in the world that persecute Christians. There are false religions that persecute Christians, even now today. So
Yeah,
we can
absolutely.
see that, but that's not what necessarily John was talking about, because he was talking about the things for those people
Well,
in
why
that time.
wouldn't he have been talking about that? Look what the emperors were doing to the Christians.
He was talking about the people in that day, the political powers and the religion in that day.
Okay,
I'm just saying that we can also see that same thing is going on today,
no,
but
absolutely.
that's not particularly what he was talking about. He was talking about the persecution that they were enduring at that time.
And some of the symbols, we don't understand exactly.
Yeah.
They did, they were living in that time period.
Right,
So, you know, we can't get it all perfect.
no.
There's
And,
no
and like I
way.
said, these are
Because
not
we don't-
our views, these are the views of, the world, the philosophers and whoever wrote these. I never did look up to see who all wrote these. I figured I had
that
to.
too.
Okay, it identifies the harlot, and the harlot, as they see it, is worldly temptations for Christians. And that is not necessarily true, because I don't think the harlot had any temptations for Christians. She was mean. As we discussed a while ago, the Great Babylon. Okay, and the 1260 days is the entire Christian era, I guess even today. But it was talking about only the early Christians in these 7 churches. Okay, and it identifies the kingdom as a church, and I guess they didn't give any thought, but again, we know what the kingdom is. It is the spiritual reign that's going on there, and it is the Christians that is the kingdom. Okay, let's go to foretells the world history. Okay, this view suggests that, this view, Revelation, predicts the history of the world between Christ's first coming and second coming. I guess maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I didn't really have any symbols. They all have the beast and so on and so forth behind it.
Dr. North just didn't give that, so
Yeah.
this is,
Yeah, so
there are lots of things that Dr. North didn't tell us about.
yeah, true. And so we don't know, and it doesn't really matter, because we do know what it is, because it tells it in Revelation and John. Okay, shortly becomes to pass, no, the time again is the next 2,000 years or more. And that was very shortly to those Christians in persecution. And comfort the persecutions? No, it did not comfort them to know that, I mean, they didn't know this was all written by men today, I suppose, or, so, anyway, but it wouldn't have been any comfort. And, let's see. Again, same thing, Reagan, only here we have the second beast is the Roman Catholic Church. And, Brother North says the Catholic Church did not arise till after the Roman Empire had fallen, and it does not seek the worship of Roman emperors.
And that's true.
And that's true, yes. And but see, like me, I just always heard that it's foretold what Catholic Church was gonna do to us and everything way back when. I mean, I'm surprised it comes to memory, but they say that you remember more of the past when you start getting older.
Yeah,
That is true. Okay. Identifies the
back in the
harlot,
day,
or
back in the day.
identifies the harlot in the book. And here, they say the 1260 days are the dark ages. And I think I have something about the dark ages.
Yeah, page 28, first paragraph.
Okay, the dark ages, how many knows what the dark ages is? Well, you're in the crowd with me, I see Helen does.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna tell my version, if yours is different, but I'll let you tell it. Okay, modern historians rarely use the term dark ages anymore because of the value the judgment of it implies. Little was then known about the period, and the negative thoughts were that it was a period of intellectual darkness and barbarity. Of course, intellectual darkness meant that they didn't know much, I guess. And barbarity was back with the Roman soldiers that were trying to take over. But anyway, going on with it. Actually though, Catholicism became crucial in religion and political matters at this time, and Christianity eventually became the predominant religion in Western Europe, Christianity of some kind. not the Christians, but other different religions. But anyway, instead of, basically what it says is going from an emperor to, the Christianity side of it. Is that what you get?
Yep.
Okay, and they also called it, I guess I didn't have that written down. Okay, but they also called it, Dark Ages.
Medieval.
Yeah, medieval and, something else.
And the people didn't, they just relied on the priest to tell them things that they didn't read, they quit reading and studying and like, I mean, back
Well-
during Roman time, they were more intellectual than they were during the Middle Ages.
Right, well, plus
Middle
they,
Ages, that's the word I was
they
looking
didn't
for.
have access to the books, and not only
Yes.
that, they couldn't read, only
Right.
the educated were able to read.
Right.
They deliberately did that to keep the peasantry under their thumb. Because they would never question the religious leaders at that time.
What period of time are we talking about? Do we have any dates that to hang our hat on?
If you were looking at that view, what period of time is the Dark Ages?
I have looked that up, but I do not have it written down, but I think it started about 300 and something, 400 something.
I don't have that down either, but I was thinking it was, at least in the early, late single digits, you know, like,
Yeah.
400 or 500.
Yeah.
500 on to, maybe.
Restoration.
Yeah, where Martin Luther and
Yeah,
all those
yeah.
people
Yeah, I
started
did read that.
changing things.
I just didn't wanna bring too much in because I knew we needed to get our lesson through, so I just brought in some interesting things I thought was interesting. But I didn't search that. That would be good. I mean, it might come up in one of the lessons. I just honestly have been reading 1 through 7. I have not got into the rest of the lessons, so I don't know what y'all are teaching as it comes up. Okay, and of course, the kingdom is what we know, it's the reign of the Christians back in those days, the kingdom. And the fall of Jerusalem, okay? This view applies the book of Revelations to the fall of Jerusalem. And symbols, yes,
I don't remember what they were, but.
I don't either. Did he mention them?
It says the beast is the Roman Empire,
Yeah.
it makes the harlot to be Jerusalem. And then
Yeah.
he dispels that because Jerusalem did not rule over or sit on the back of the Roman Empire.
Right,
And
I
it
got- I
makes the
do
view
have
of
that
the
down.
1260 days to be the period of the Roman siege of Jerusalem. In that view.
Right, they thought the harlot was Jerusalem. Okay, so shortly come to pass, and has a time frame around 70 AD is when this, when they had it. And there's a reason that it couldn't be that, and we're gonna get into that. And the Church of Asia would not have been comforted knowing about the fall of Jerusalem, even though it didn't really concern them. Jerusalem was looked up to, and they were a young church.
It tells us about the fall of Jerusalem in Matthew, I believe, 24.
Yeah.
Yes. That's when Jesus predicts the fall of Jerusalem, and he tells the disciples what they should be doing.
To leave the city.
Yeah, and I got that done in my lesson for something. Identifies the harlot, and they just say the harlot is the city of Jerusalem. Okay, the earliest, going back to 70, the earliest mention of the book of Revelation suggests that it was in circulation in 95 AD. Also, the 7 churches would have been much younger then, but is described as being in existence. And the 1260 days is Rome's siege on Jerusalem, which it isn't. And it identifies the kingdom as the church, which it does, but it doesn't have it there. Okay, the other difficulties, Jerusalem fell in 70 AD, but the earliest mention of Revelations being circulated was 95 AD. So that's like 25 years there, and the churches of Asia would have still been really young and not as described in Revelation. I mean, you know, we talked about 7 churches and how they haven't been doing this, haven't been doing that, and so they'd have to have been, older than that instead of just being a young church. Of course, when I'm not gonna get into 7 churches, I know that's coming up. But why would Christ have a message about the fall of Jerusalem set to 7 Roman cities? So that also is a fallacy. Okay, okay. Got a map here, let me show you. To go along with this, and I didn't get it put up there. It kept telling me my computer I borrowed from my son, and actually it's more like a tablet, and it didn't have enough spaces to connect to this, but I used it at home. But anyway, Rome is way over here, and here's the 7 churches.
Hold it up.
Okay. Rome's way over here. I couldn't find a map that was big enough to see. And here's the 7 churches in Asia, and down here is Jerusalem. So why would Jerusalem affect these churches? Which, of course, it probably wouldn't, because it's so far away.
Well, but when you look at, in retrospect, about the Jews, you know, Jerusalem was their holy city, I think, at that time. And that's where, wasn't that where the temple was? In Jerusalem? So I can see why it would have a huge impact on the other
The Jewish
churches.
population more so than the Christian
Yeah.
population, but. the
Yeah.
Christians-
Well, it did, but you have to remember, early Christians were originally Jews.
Yeah.
So they still probably had some of that tradition in their lives.
And a lot of them though were, other nationalities too, so there was a mixture of it, yes.
And like I said, this is not perfect, and this is just, what we consider getting out of it.
I'm a little confused here. Am I wrong that Jerusalem fell in 70 AD?
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yes.
That's what?
70 AD fell.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah,
this
that's-
was written in 90,
yeah.
so
But,
Jerusalem has already fallen before this is written, am I wrong?
but these are people's opinion, not the
Yes.
Bible's opinion.
Yes.
This is people's opinion.
Some of them think it was written in 65
They
instead
do.
of 90.
Yes.
So it was
But it couldn't
predicting
be.
the immediate demise of Jerusalem.
Majority of them go with the later writing of Revelations, but there are a few scholars who thought it was earlier.
Because John wrote it in that time, at that time period, when he wrote it on the Isle of Patmos,
Right.
Revelation.
Well, and there's questions that John was the same person that wrote Revelations. Like, we think of the Apostle John, right? That's the John that we believe wrote Revelations, but there was other people that didn't question who actually wrote Revelations. So,
Well,
yeah, I mean, that's one of the first things in the book we're talking about. And then I have another one by another Church of Christ writer that's in our library, I have that at home. They're not positive that John wrote it, but it's believed by most people that he did.
And going back to 1260, I have one more comment on it. The 1260 days was not a war on the saints, because most Christians had escaped Jerusalem before it was sieged by the Babylonians. So, anyway, I just want to point that out too. Okay, now we're going to the fall of Rome.
When last year when we went to the Kiefer Center, but we need to remember they didn't have any kind of printing press and stuff, so it was years and years before they were able to get any kind of written word done, much less out to, everybody else around it. And it was just amazing when you saw all of that piece by piece that they had to. It was like one little letter at a time and type of thing, and so we need to take that into account also.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Going on to the fall of Romans, symbols, they have, yes, the same, the beast and the harlot that, we have. I mean, it was in some of the other views. Well, not nearly all of them believed in the beast and the harlot. But anyway, how about, does it shortly come to pass? Yes. Then again, immediately after the book was written in 95 AD is the earliest account, I think. And it plays out in the following years until the fall of Rome in 475. That's where I got this instead of the 300 something. This written. And like I said, I did read it, Bible and here, but all of it didn't stay with me. Okay, so that works. This works. Yes, this shortly come to pass. Yes, it was right then when the book was given. And comfort the persecuted Christians. Yes, they did. Encouragement through the coming persecution to be faithful unto death. And somehow I missed having my other verses read. Sorry, girls. So yeah. And it identifies the dragon and the two beasts. The dragon is Satan. The first beast is Roman Empire. The second beast is a cult of Roman worship. And this was the whole thing about why they were being persecuted, is because the Christians would not bow down and worship the emperor. And so the beast would have them killed. I mean, that's serious stuff, kind of like back in Daniel's time. And actually they refer to Daniel and some Ezekiel and some of the others. Okay, it identifies the harlot, and yes, the harlot is the city of Rome. We know that. Did I give somebody that verse?
What's the verse?
I don't remember.
Was it 17, 1 through 3?
Well, go ahead and read it.
Okay, I'll read it. Okay. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits on the many waters. With her, the kings of the earth committed adultery, and inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into the desert. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns."
Okay, that was supposed to go along with the description of the harlot.
Well, she's
Yeah,
sitting
that's
on
the
a
heart.
horse.
Yeah. Okay, and it, well, I guess that worked in pretty good. Harlot is the city of Rome, but she was a very destructive one. Okay, and identifies the 1260 days. And it was, the 1260 days was time of persecution for these 7 churches. And it identifies the kingdom of his church. The kingdom is the church, was the church, and still is the church. Okay. The view suggests that the primary message of the book is to inform early Christians that Satan will be using the Roman Empire and the cult of emperor worship to persecute the church out of existence. That's what they really wanted to do, is just get rid of the church so they couldn't disagree with them. And then Christ is encouraging Christians, though, to remain faithful unto death during this critical times. And did I have a verse on that? What'd you have? Dale, did you get a verse?
Well, I might have.
Okay, that's all. Did anybody else get the verse that we haven't read?
Oh, to read, I'm sorry. I'm still thinking Revelation. Just a minute. John 11:19.
I mean, in your book will be scriptures anyway, so.
Okay, I'll take it out. And many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother.
Where are you?
11:19, that's
What? What is it? The verse, where's it found?
John 11:19, what's written here. And it's, and many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them
No.
concerning their brother.
No, that's not it.
That's, I either gave it to you wrong, or are you
Maybe you
sure?
want First John.
Are you in First John?
Here, read this. and
I think
see
she's
if
in
that's what
regular
it
John.
says.
It's probably Revelations to the John. Who knows? I was up doing some of this at one this morning.
Do that
Where
one.
we are. I'm trying to read the story of.
And the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of the testament. And there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and an earthquake and great hail.
Okay, I still don't know why I got that verse, but like I said, I am not a teacher of adults, I'm a teacher of children. And so I'm just trying to put together what I got out of it, I guess. So, anyway, so, oh, yeah, okay. Now, I'll just finish this up, we could go in real quick to the conclusion. Oh, yeah, this was on the answer, okay, we don't have to do that then. Like I said, actually, the conclusion is that, he wants the Christians to remain faithful until death, and also promises that God has not forgotten them. And this song that we used to sing, he has not forgotten thee, all the little children in their beds at night, he tells them that he has not forgotten. And you always love that song, but I thought, you don't need to sing it. And okay, this book writes in figurative code, because the literal language would have given the Romans another reason to consider the church a group of traitors. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I think I've said that. Is that the last of it? Okay, and we do have a, questions here. And actually, I have some questions that goes with the lessons. And we'll go through them really quick, just yell out the answer. So who is really behind the coming persecutions? To the early Christians. Satan. What is his aim?
What?
What is his aim?
Kill us.
To destroy the church, really.
Actually, to destroy the church. He wanted it gone. Who will be his agent in this persecution?
The Romans. No.
Who? Roman Empire. He's used the Roman empires to do this with. And why will the emperor oppose the church? Why is he opposing the church?
They feared the power of the church, really, and the Christians wouldn't
But the second beast,
follow them.
the second beast, what was he there to do?
Worship the instrument.
Yeah.
Worship,
That- that's
and they
what
wouldn't do
he-
it.
So, the emperor opposed the church because they wouldn't worship him.
Right.
He wanted to be worshipped like God. Okay, what dilemma are the Christians gonna face?
Persecution.
Are you going by one of the papers we got today?
I'm going
Trying to
by
find-
Dr. Norris.
No.
We've got another.
Yeah, it's on there, it's at the bottom.
Okay.
I've still got a few minutes, so I'll do the next one. I want to go ahead and run through this one. Okay, so what dilemma will Christians face here in the church?
Persecution.
Yes, if they either have to worship the emperor or be killed. That was their dilemma. And, so he's telling them to stay faithful, even if you're killed, stay faithful, and you'll have a better home later. Okay, is that the end of that one? That's all. Okay,
And you know, really, it may not be Rome, but all of those things apply to us today too.
yes. That is actually what I finally got out of Romans. I don't have that down in my lesson, but, I can see, I used to think, what does that have to do with me? Well, what it has to do with me is that Christ is still there for us. We're still apparently gonna have some persecution, and we were talking about what kind of persecution should we be prepared for? And, so we thought, anybody got an idea? And just real quick, cause we are gonna go on into the test, it's not a test. Pardon?
You should be sentenced to jail or hard pass.
Yeah, especially,
Breaking up rocks.
Legal, financial, and it may come physical, we don't know.
yeah, it could be anything.
Not there yet,
I mean, you know, we live in a really free country,
yeah.
and, but we all have our own problems. Maybe, we don't have enough money to pay the bills. I mean, it's not persecution like they had, but it's still a big problem to us today. And we just have to remember that God's gonna see us through it. Like, you know, when I lost, you know, God help me. Okay.
One thing about it, I think about, no matter how we're persecuted, I mean, after a while you lose your mind probably, but they can never take it out of our mind.
Yeah. And God is always there for us, and
I've just noticed in my Bible, Bill McFarland, on 11/2017, he wrote his sermon was about presence and glory, and he used a lot of Revelations in that.
okay, back to our questions. What were the 5 views about Revelation which our class materials presented? Anybody want to answer that?
Futuristic was
The
one.
5 views, or the 5, what'd you call it, opinions?
Yeah.
Futuristic was one.
What?
Futuristic.
Well,
Yeah.
A,
the
B,
fall-
C, D, E is fall of Rome, destruction of Jerusalem, it foretells world history, principles for philosophical.
Yeah.
And then E is future, what,
Time.
future time.
Okay. The fall of Jerusalem, destruction fall of Rome, the destruction of Jerusalem foretells the world history, principles or philosophies, view, future times. Okay, what were the 7 keys about Revelation prevented, that we studied about?
Well, that, one thing I wanna say, that the fall of Rome was the right,
Fall of
opinion.
Rome, A was fall of Rome, yeah.
I was just summing up what she said.
Okay, so now we studied the 5, and now we're going to the 7 keys. Revelation is written in. Yeah, Revelation will.
Shortly come to pass.
Shortly come to pass. Revelation was given to.
Comfort.
Comfort.
And Christians, persecuted Christians.
Yes. Revelation identifies the dragon as.
Satan.
Satan. The first beast is
The Roman
the
Empire.
Roman Empire, and the second beast is.
Emperor worship. Emperor worship.
Emperor worship. That was really what, it seems like what they were killing the Christians for, because they wouldn't worship the emperor. Anyway, that's what the second beast was doing. Okay, Revelation, yeah, the first beast is the, what?
The first piece, Roman Empire.
Roman Empire, yes. The first beast is Roman Empire, and, where'd I lose I lost my place.
You're on number 5, actually.
Under 4.
Okay, and the second beast is
The emperor worship.
emperor worship. Revelation identifies the harlot as the city of
Rome.
Rome. Revelation identifies the 1260 days as a time when the Rome
Persecuted Christians.
persecuted Christians, and Revelation identifies the kingdom as the
Spiritual reign.
and that
Spiritual
we're
reign.
part of today, the kingdom. Okay, which of the 7 keys fit the future times approach? Actually, this was confusing to Linda and I too, so if you want to skip it, we
It's
can.
all opinion.
Yeah.
But really, none of them fit that one.
Well, till we get down to 7, and 7 fits all of them, right. Okay, which of the views did the class materials favor? A, B, C, or D? E?
You mean
So
3, 4,
A
5,
was Fall of Rome, does it fit to all of the, if you take all the keys into consideration that she's gone through, which, does it best fit the Fall of Rome, the destruction of
Fall of Rome.
So are you referring back to number 1 on
Yes.
number 8?
Yes,
So it'd be A, the fall of Rome.
yes.
So it would be A. And I think that is all I've got this morning. I really appreciate Linda helping me, because I've never done PowerPoint. I had it at home on a computer, but it wouldn't plug into this. So I did kind of learn a little bit about it. But anyway, I really appreciate
Well,
it.
don't highlight yourself because that's the hardest book in the Bible.
Well, it is, like I said, I did, one day asked me, I said, I don't even understand it, how can I teach it? But I found that if you study hard enough and have this Dr. Norton's book, you can understand it. And, I mean, not all of it, of course, there's still a lot of symbolism and stuff like that, I just got into it, then we went past the 7th chapter. So, and it is actually very interesting, the more I studied, like I said, I got these things out of it, and, so anyway, anybody got any comments, questions, or anything else?
Their assignment for next week, it'll be on the 7 churches, I think it's Ruth Lyons' church.
Okay, thank you. Can I lead a prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for letting us all be together here and willing to study your word. And let us take something home with us that we can see that we've learned this morning that can benefit us in our own lives. And be with us as we go out through our lives, and forgive us when we sin, and help us through the trials that we do have sometimes, and we know you will. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you.